What's going on, guys? Kpine here and welcome back. And in this video I'll be featuring a double bug and electric line that I used to reach my new elo season high of the mid 3200s. Jellicent on the lead, Galvantula on the safe swap, and Charger Bug in the back. I absolutely love running Galv any chance I get, so pairing it with the newly buffed Charger Bug just seemed like a no-brainer to me. This team is structured in an ABB style where if the Jellicent doesn't have a very positive lead, you will want to be swapping into your Galv at some point, if not right away, to try and bait out a Runerigus, Dragalge, or even a Chandelure. The reason why I'm running Galv in the safe swap is because you have access to Lunge in order to debuff your opponents just in case you're not able to get switch advantage. One instance you do want to safe swap the Charger Bug, however, would be against a Zweilous lead, because if they do happen to stay in, you have the pacing advantage to the X Scissors that Lunge doesn't provide. And with that, let's get right into the battles. Alright, getting to the first battle, we lead Jellicent into Azumarill. Now this is a pretty decent lead for us, but we do have two better answers in the back, as well as we're looking to bait out a potential answer to the electric and bug type. So we're going to safe swap into our Galv, and my opponent is staying in, and it appears that they are absolutely core broken by the Galvantula safe swap, which is perfect news because I've got another one right behind it in Charger Bug as well. We're able to get the entire Volt Switch down, and now my opponent brings in a Jellicent. Oh no, Galvantula is about to run rampant into this team. As a 4-turn user against a 3-turn user, good timing is after 2 Volt Switches or after 5 Volt Switches, so that's why you see when the Jelly originally came in, I threw 2 Volt Switches first. And here, my Galvantula has done its job, but since they were so weak to it, I knew I could give up my shield there, farm down the Jellicent, and then debuff whatever they have in the back. But in this case, my opponent hard swaps, and it's a Greninja in the back, running a triple water team, and my double electric backline is able to make quick work of that. GG's to my opponent. Next battle, we lead Jellicent into Wormadam lead. Now, I can't really safe swap into my Galvantula right away against a Wormadam lead, just because those confusions will chunk. So we're going to stay in for a little bit. We get off some damage first with a Shadow Ball and then safe swap into our Galv. My opponent makes it easy. They safe swap into a Toxapex, and I have a beautiful answer for it in my Charger Bug. Again, I don't come in with my Galv against the Toxapex just because Galv is kind of squishy and would have to respect a Sludge Wave. Or Charger Bug doesn't have to. I could get off both of those discharges for switch if my opponent let them go, but they didn't. They decided to give up 2 shields, and now I just give 1 in return to take out this Toxapex, and I'm able to maintain switch advantage, of which the Wormadam does come back in. Unfortunately, my opponent gets the 1-turn lag on the bring-in, so I do get off this discharge that I shouldn't have otherwise. But as you'll see, what they have in the back, it is not going to matter. Would have been unfortunate for my opponent if it did matter, but fortunately, it didn't, as they do have an Azu in the back. Here, I'm just going to overfarm. They're gonna load up, throw an Ice Beam first, which I will shield. And here, this is the moment another moment I was talking about good timing as a 4-turn user versus 3. 2 Volt Switches versus their 3 bubbles is good timing. As we get off 1 discharge to bring the Azu down into the red. 1 more Volt Switch takes it out, and we leave with another discharge to take care of the Wormadam. GG's to my opponent. Next battle, we lead Jellicent into Toxicroak. This is an absolutely dominating lead as our entire team does well against Toxicroak. So we are going to stay in for a little bit as our opponent does as well, and then they're going to swap into a Shadow Drapion, of which I'll meet with a Charger Bug. And this is kind of unfortunate because 2 crunches are enough to take out a Charger Bug. If it's a non-Shadow Drapion, you can take 2 crunches, given that they don't get the crunch debuff. But my opponent here does get the crunch debuff, so now they can go for Aqua Tail if they have it, which they do. I would be shielding that anyways, despite the debuff or not, just because they are Shadow. But either way, I can force switch if I want to. Just because 1 lunge is enough to take out the Drapion after all of that Volt Switch damage has been applied, but since that Toxicroak has nowhere to go, I don't need Switch Advantage. So I can just farm all the way down and get tons of energy on my Galv. I do swap out to try and catch an Aqua Tail onto my Jellicent there, just because I wasn't going to be able to farm down all the way. But my opponent, nice patience, they hold on, able to land a crunch against my Jellicent. And then they bring in their own Jelly and catch the Shadow Ball on their Toxicroak. So now this is going to be an extremely close match. I can't take out the Toxicroak right away just because I don't want to give their Jelly more farm. So what I do is I end up farming to a Surf and a Shadow Ball so I can take out the Toxicroak with the Shadow Ball and land that Shadow Ball, take out Toxicroak with a Surf and land that Shadow Ball on the Jelly to guarantee it is in discharge range for my own Galvantula. So my opponent played that very well, made it very, very close. But fortunately, we were able to hold on and get that win. GG's to my opponent. Next battle, Shadow Scizor lead. You are going to want to load up and throw after 5 hexes. If your opponent throws after 7 bolt punches, that's good timing. So you're just going to throw 1 more hex, and here I go for the Surf Bait. Surf Bait is just not going to KO, but it is a Shadow Scizor, and they love to shield, so I'm expecting the shield from my opponent, which I do get, and now I'm going to instantly swap into my Galvantula. I will shoot up this move, and then I was going to overfarm and throw a lunge right before they get to their next move, as from that health range, a lunge is enough to take out a Shadow Scizor. It does a little over 40%, so you can try and gauge that, but if you play it the way I do, you overfarm properly and throw right before the next move, a lunge would be enough to take out the Shadow Scizor. But instead, they swap into a Swalot, and Swalot does only have nuke charge moves, so that's a little fortunate for us as we are able to overfarm a little bit there. Shadow Scizor comes back in. I am able to swap, catch that move onto my Jellicent, and from here, whatever they have in the back is going to have a bad day, as it's either going to be met by double lunge debuffs or double discharges, as it is the Toxapex in the back. First discharge lands, second discharge coming through. Does end up getting their final shield, but that is okay. We have our Charjabug in the back, can easily tank a Sludge Wave, no problem. As the Sludge Wave comes through, and we are going to throw this discharge off, and now 1 more Volt Switch will be enough to take care of the Scizor, and that's a good game. GG's to my opponent. Next battle, we lead Jellicent into Runerigus, and this is a tough lead for the team because you obviously don't want to see it on your backline. So in the lead against Jelly, this becomes a baiting game. If you shield a Shadow Ball, you're in a good position. If you no shield a Shadow Ball, you just instantly lose. You shield a Sand Tomb, you're in a very, very tough spot. And you no shield a Sand Tomb, you're in a good spot. So that lead is, it's so tough to play. It just all comes down to the bait calls. And what makes it even worse, my opponent has a Dragalge in the back. So they have 2 Pokemon that just absolutely destroy my backline. That's going to be very tough because my Jellicent is very, very low. And I also need my Jellicent around for the Runerigus. So essentially, I'm forced to sacrifice my Charjabug here, as we are able to take out the Dragalge. Back in comes the Rune, just barely able to hang on to get off this X-Scissor. But unfortunately, the Rune does get a big farm bound. So we're going to wait out our clock. Then we're going to bring in our Jelly and hope that they no-shield this Surf for some reason, but they're not going to. So they farm down my Jelly all the way, and now here at this point, my only win condition is just to call the Sand Tomb bait and hope it's something that's extremely weak to Galv in the back. Step number 1, call a Sand Tomb bait, and now here, getting risky, calling another Sand Tomb bait, but they full send the Shadow Ball. Tried to do everything I could in that matchup to flip it, but unfortunately that was a very hard counter, as we do lock in a 4-1 in that set, as we load up into the next set right after that we played the next morning, leading into a Sableye lead. We're going to swap into our Galvantula, give up a shield here to the foul play. Throw our lunge right away so we can apply that debuff. Want to make sure we see that Shadow Claw come through just so they don't catch it, and my opponent's going to shield as well. My opponent overfarms. Very nice play by them. They're able to catch that lunge onto an Azu, but they're swapping an Azu into my Galv, so potentially it's another double water back line, and they wanted to save their Sableye for my Jellicent because their back line wouldn't be able to handle it. So instead, I'm just going to overfarm here and take out the Azu with this discharge, or force them to give up a shield, or both of their shields, I should say. Well, even if they gave up that shield, I had the back-to-back discharge, so they'd be giving up a shield and switch. So they made the right play by letting that go, bringing back in their Sableye. And now I get to apply that lunge debuff that I had, get Charjabug on the Sableye, and they have their own jelly in the back. So here I can just stay in. Charjabug can tank a Shadow Ball, no problem, which is what they go for. Now I'm going to overfarm 2 extra Volt Switches to the back-to-back discharge. Discharge will take out the jelly, and then I swap into my own jelly just in case they try to go for a CMP tie onto my Charjabug there. I can just swap into my jelly, force them to expend all of their energy, of which my Charjabug can then freely fire off its discharge, or if they overfarm here, my Jellicent will get to a Surf, and I'm able to win that one. GG's. Next battle, Jellicent into Toxapex. This is a very good lead. I do plan on staying in for a little bit and eventually save swapping into my Galvantula if they do stay in, just to check. But my opponent, you see, they make a very, very nice play here. If they swap into Sableye right away, you just swap into your Charjabug right away. But my opponent threw 1 Poison Jab on their Toxapex. And because they did that, and I was, tapping through the screen, I wasn't paying as much attention as I should have, that it locked me into a second Hex, allowing their Sableye to get another Shadow Claw advantage. And that extra Shadow Claw advantage flips the matchup into Sableye's favor against Charjabug. Where if they swap into your their Sableye right away, you throw 1 Hex with your jelly, then instantly swap into your Charjabug, you'll take switch advantage. But in this case, by throwing that Poison Jab, locking me into 2 Hexes, they are able to take switch advantage. So instead, I play for shields. Now they bring back in their Toxapex, and you'll see they have a Greninja in the back. So my opponent played that beautifully to take advantage of that mid game right there with their Sableye. Well played to them. So that's just something to look out for. Like, if your Jellicent has a dominant lead, look out for that play, the Poison Jab or just a single fast move, and then swap into your Sableye, just so you're quick with your tap and don't accidentally lock yourself into a double Hex like I did, because unfortunately that will cost me the game here, as it will shield up the Hydro Cannon, and back in comes the Toxapex, of which will be able to take me out. And again, I had a very advantageous team comp that game, but my opponent just played it brilliantly. GG's to them. Next battle, Jellicent into another Toxapex. So very similar situations last time. We would stay in, fire off a Shadow Ball, and then save swap out of there. But here, my opponent swaps into a Sableye. So a little bit of a redemption match here. You'll see they don't throw that Poison Jab at first. They swap into their Sableye right away, and we will be able to take switch advantage. Granted, this is a Shadow Sableye, but regardless of being Shadow or not, if that happens, you will be able to get switch back. So we are looking for a little bit of a redemption play there. As our opponent lets it go, they will make another foul play. That is perfectly fine. Even though Shadow Charjabug is fairly tanky, able to hang on, Toxapex gets the farm down. We bring him back jelly, and it's another Greninja. So it seems like doesn't seem like, as it is, the same team as we faced last match. But fortunately for us, we are able to play it a little bit better and put ourselves in a winning position this time around. Again, 2 Volt Switches is good timing against a 3-turn user, which we do right there. And as you'll see, very crucial, Greninja one-shots Gal with a Hydro Cannon. But after you get that lunge debuff, you're just barely able to survive that Hydro Cannon and get off another move. Just something to keep in mind for future reference. As we take that one, GG's to my opponent. Next battle, Jellicent into Greninja. Terrible lead, so we're going to save swap into our Galv, and our opponent's going to meet it with their own Charger Bug. We're going to throw this lunge right away to take advantage of their desync from the switch, as well as apply that lunge debuff as quickly as possible. My opponent overfarms a little too much, allowing us to get to another lunge before they fire off their X-Scissor. They survive on 1 HP. That's so extremely fortunate because they're at the back-to-back moves. So I am going to have to end up giving up a shield here that I wouldn't have needed to otherwise. But in the back, they have a Wormadam. And fortunately, though, that we do have the alignment we want now, as we were able to take switch advantage. And we land a discharge to the Wormadam. Every move that the Wormadam throws at Jellicent is resisted, and we also have our Charger Bug here to just Volt Switch down this Greninja. They go for 1 Night Slash, that's not going to be enough to take us out. And now they're going for another move. This is enough for Hydro Cannon, but if they do go for the Hydro Cannon, I would just barely be able to hang on and get off the X-Scissor. So I let it go. It ends up just being the Night Slash, which is even better for me, because I can get off another Volt Switch worth of damage and get their shield with an X-Scissor. Give up a shield of my own here, Volt Switch down their Greninja, and my opponent at this point realizes the match is over and they concede it. GG's. Next battle, Jellicent into Toxicroak again. Absolute fantastic lead. See what my opponent wants to do, and they throw one jab, one counter I should say, and then swap into their Greninja, which we can comfortably meet with our Charger Bug. They go for the Hydro Cannon, so we're going to throw 2 more Volt Switches and go for this X-Scissor before they can reach another move. My opponent does end up giving his shield, and they throw on alignment, which is absolutely massive for us because we can safely shield that Night Slash, fire off an X-Scissor. Unfortunately, that Volt Switch doesn't take out the Greninja in time, so we do have to go for an X-Scissor before they reach another Night Slash. But that's fine, as the Toxicroak comes back in, we're able to get off this discharge against it, and now they swap into a Charger Bug of our own, so we're going to counter swap with the Galv, and at this point this match is over, because even though the Charger Bug will be able to take out my Galv, we'll be able to apply lunge debuff after lunge debuff, so our Jellicent can safely survive any discharges that the Charger Bug will have to throw at our Galv. So first X-Scissor is coming through. We survive that. We overfarm to play to the CMP tie of their next X-Scissor, but my opponent smartly overfarms, recognizing I was playing to that CMP tie. Get an extra Volt Switch in, and now they're going for another X-Scissor to take out my Galv. And here, I played a little bit risky. I bring in my Jellicent, throw 1 Surf, and then try to catch on my Charger Bug. This is potentially a lose con just because I give their Charger all that energy and the ability to swap out, where if I just stayed in there, that energy is double debuffed and my Jelly would easily be able to survive. But nonetheless, we are able to get to the back-to-back surfs. First surf does take out the Toxicroak, and we are just outside of discharge range. So we are able to hang on and get off this final surf to take out the Charger Bug. GG's to my opponent. As you'll see, we are able to obtain another 4-1 set and climb all the way up to 3254 Elo. I did have a lot of fun with this team, and as I mentioned before, I am a big fan of the Spider. Plus, with all the water types running around, the double electric backline is able to take advantage of that very, very well. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate you. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Love to hear what you have to say. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.